When it comes to pricing strategies for your recording studio, there are two main ways that you can charge for your services. The first way and the most obvious way is just simply charging per hour or per day, so X number of dollars per day. The second way is by charging per song, so X number of dollars per track or per song. So which way is better? Which way is going to make you more money at the end of the day? Well, there are definite pros and cons to each of these two approaches, so today's video is all about helping you determine which way is best for your specific situation. And I'm going to even show you a strategy that I use to increase my hourly income to over $300. And by the way, if you struggle with understanding the business of running your studio, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button because I'm going to be making a lot more videos like this in the future. So whether you're just starting out or you've been doing this for 10 or more years, determining your pricing strategy is going to be very important because if you're not doing the best strategy for your situation, you could be leaving a lot of money on the table. So first, let's explore the per hour or per day pricing strategy. This is what most people seem to gravitate to, and for pretty good reason. It's basically guaranteeing you a set rate for every single project, no matter how long it drags out for. That means if you're charging $300 a day for a 10-hour day, then you're making $30 an hour. So even if the project goes for an extra week, you're still making $300 per day or $30 an hour. This means if an unprepared band comes into the studio and they're wasting your time, you're still making $300 per day. Even if they're spending twice as much time to record their parts as the average band, you're still making $300 per day. So charging a flat rate is perfectly safe, but that's also the negative for charging this way. If you charge $300 per day, you will never make more than $300 per day, no matter how good you get at your job, no matter how efficient you become. So if you ever hire an assistant to help out around the studio, or you start sending off editing work or other stuff to subcontractors in an effort to speed things up in the process, all you're doing is diluting your $300 per day income. So the more efficient you become and the better you get at delegating and collaborating with others, the less you make. So all you're doing is hurting your overall income. So this is where we get into project-based pricing or charging per song or per track. So first of all, let me talk about the negatives of project-based pricing. So if you're charging a flat rate per song for an artist and they're coming into your studio and they end up wasting your time, that's just eating away at your hourly pay. An example would be if you're charging $500 a song and the average band takes 10 hours to do a song, then your average income is $50 per hour. But if that band comes in unprepared and spends 20 or 30 or 50 hours recording one song, well, now your hourly pay has taken a nosedive to $10 per hour. So I like saving project-based pricing for situations where I am the one in control of the project speed. Things like drum editing, vocal tuning, mixing, mastering, all of these things are more predictable. There's less of an X factor. There's less of a human element compared to when you have a band in the studio physically with you. So now, let's talk about how project-based pricing can really help ramp things up for you in your studio. And I'm going to use an example, an illustration from my studio, 456 Recordings. If I take on a mixing project for, let's just say, a 10-song album, and I charge $500 per song, that's a total of $5,000. So it may take me maybe, let's just say 50 hours to finish the entire project from start to finish. So that comes out to roughly $100 an hour, which is great, right? But this is where things get interesting. If I start outsourcing or delegating some of that work, I can increase my hourly income to a much higher number than just $100 per hour. So here's a simplified look at how all this would work for a project like this. Let's just say the band sends me the files to mix. My assistant then opens up the files and starts doing all of the session prep work for me. And if you think about it, 80 to 90% of a mixing project is really nothing more than non-creative, tedious, repetitive things like file management or session structure or labeling or template setups or non-creative automation, other tasks that can be done by just following a simple step-by-step instructional checklist or video. So I sat down one day, this is late last year, I sat down for 6 hours one day and I set up an entire step-by-step checklist and then a 1-hour like ScreenFlow tutorial walkthrough video that covers every single step in my mix prep process. So that means all my assistant has to do is follow a step-by-step instructional checklist, and once he completes this checklist, all I have to do from that point on is open the session up and get right into the creative part of mixing. Straight into the part of the job that only I can do, the thing that I am hired to do. See, I get paid $500 a song to make a mix sound like a Brian Hood mix, and none of that comes from the mix prep checklist that my assistant handles. So now let's look at how all these numbers pan out now that I've outsourced the stuff to my assistant. If I'm making $5,000 to mix this album, but I pay my assistant $1,500 to do all the mix prep for me, my profit has gone down to only $3,500. But instead of 50 hours, it now takes me 10 total hours to finish the entire project. That means my income goes up from $100 an hour to about $350 an hour for this same project. And that is the only way you're ever going to be able to make $350 an hour from a home studio these days. This is just not a thing that you can do anymore. Maybe back in the 90s you could get this much, but today, if you want to make $350 per hour in the studio, this is the way to do it. But if I were to tell a band that I charge $350 an hour, they would probably just laugh at me. They would never, ever, ever, ever pay me that much. So this is the way you have to do it. Systemization and delegation are the way to increase your income. And that sounds great, right? Who wouldn't want to earn $350 an hour? But let me leave you with a bit of warning here. Project-based pricing, doing it this way, this can absolutely backfire if you do not have the right systems, the right processes, the right people in place to really maximize things in the studio. If you're unwilling or unable to invest time and resources into maximizing things in your business, then just stick to the hourly or the daily rate because that is a safer bet. But if you ever want to start leveraging systems or checklists or people to start maximizing your creative work, this is the way to do it. It's going to remove stress from your life. It's going to let you focus on what really matters in the studio. And ultimately, it's going to help you create better art. And the end result just happens to be that you can triple your hourly income. So if you want to take a look at that exact mix prep checklist that I made for my assistant, you can just go to mixprep.studio. That's the URL, mixprep.studio. Or you can just click that link in the description of this video. And that checklist is going to show you exactly how I do my own mix prep, and it's going to give you a behind the scenes look at how I use these checklists to increase my hourly income for the studio. So it's going to give you a very good idea of what you need to do to replicate what I've done. Also included with that checklist is the video that I actually used to train my assistant to do my mix prep process. So take this resource, systemize something in your business today, and you should see a major bump in your hourly income if you do this the right way. And again, that link is mixprep.studio. Happy hustling.